As I said in the introduction, emotions are the way we experience relationship. What we feel is how we relate. So it makes sense that in counseling, particularly counseling with couples, we focus on feelings and the emotional reactions of each partner to the other. In this presentation, I'll talk about emotional intelligence, EI as it's called. That name was first coined by John D. Mayer from Yale University in 1980. There's more and more evidence that EI is a key aspect of lasting intimate relationships. Higher EI scorers are able to manage their feelings and their relationship in a positive manner, while lower EI scorers have more conflict and turmoil in their relationships. So what is emotional intelligence? John D. Mayer says emotional intelligence is the ability to accurately perceive your own and other people's emotions, to understand the signals that emotions sends about relationships, and to manage your own and others' emotions. In this quote, we see the main aspects of emotional intelligence: accurate perception of our own and other people's emotions, and our ability to manage our emotional reactions. So the two main aspects of EI are what I call self-emotions and other emotions. Self-emotions is the ability to recognize and feel, manage our own emotions, while others' emotions is the ability to recognize and empathize with other people's emotions. So let's look at these in more detail. So EI for ourselves includes self-awareness and self-management. So self-awareness comes first. Without awareness, we cannot know what we are experiencing and what feelings we are feeling. Some of these are evoked by outer events, and other feelings arise from our unconscious inner world. Feelings influence what we think and how we act. For example, it shows that in state-dependent memory, that when we are sad, the things we are most likely to remember are sad things, sad memories. And when we are happy, we can access positive memories. An important aspect of self-awareness is the ability to name or label our emotions. Only when we know what we're feeling can we modulate those emotions and express them appropriately. Self-management of emotions is how we communicate what we are feeling in a way that can be heard and understood without blaming or overwhelming the other person. It also includes skills in self-soothing and the ability to calm down our nervous system. So what is emotional intelligence for others? Well, it includes social awareness and relationship management. Applying our EI to others requires that we're sensitive to nonverbal and verbal clues to what the other person is feeling. A husband often needs to learn how his spouse expresses sadness, hurt, and anger. As married couples, we develop an almost sixth sense as to the moods and emotions of our partner, and over time develop skills in what I call compassionate boundaries. The ability to empathize and understand our partner's feelings, but not get sucked in to trying to fix them or take the blame or become defensive. Low EI in couples. There are many measures of emotional intelligence, but an easy and simple one is the Brief Emotional Intelligence Scale, BEIS 10. This has only 10 questions. It measures how we recognize and regulate our own emotions, how we recognize and regulate other people's emotions, plus how we use our emotions. You can find a copy in the handout section on my website. Studies show that when at least one partner has high EI, there is a much more likelihood that the relationship will be positive. In general, men tend to have lower EI, both in their inability to understand and to express their feelings. They tend to dismiss feelings, their own and of their female partner, as silly or meaningless, and this of course leads to conflict. Basically, most of our couples clients have low EI. They tend to have a distorted and immature expectation of the relationship and how it should be. They minimize their own negative reactions and overemphasize the reactions of the other partner in patterns of blame and defensiveness, arguing about who did what and why they did it. Fundamentally, they don't believe that the other person's intentions towards them are positive and loving. In particular, low EI couples have all sorts of mixed up ideas about the experience and communication of love. So let me talk a little bit more about that. What is love? We all know that love is profound and impossible to describe or define fully. It's the foundation of most religious experience and of all positive relationships. Couples with low EI hold all sorts of crazy and unrealistic ideas about love, thinking that because they feel affection or attachment or even neediness towards the other person, they are in love. Mature love is a way of being, a sense of compassionate affection that fosters loving behaviors, helpfulness, appreciation, generosity, selflessness, cooperation. A feeling of attachment without loving behavior is not mature love. It's an illusion of love. Learning to love is a long and often difficult process, particularly if the person did not have loving parents. It has to start with tolerance, not of your partner's bad behavior, but of your own selfishness, which shows itself as irritation and annoyance at that other person. Mature tolerance has reasonable limits, but allows the other person to be their unique self. To be loving, we have to accept the person as they are, not as we want them to be. Again, this does not include destructive behaviors or infidelity. Tolerance and acceptance leads to understanding. And as we know, understanding is the gateway to love. When we truly understand another person in all of their complexity, we can connect with them at a much deeper level. So essentially, as counselors, we're trying to promote more love in the world. At a practical level, we need to help a couple develop a higher quality of emotional intelligence. Our basic listening and reflecting skills are an essential foundation. As well as listening to the incidents and events that couples report, we need to listen to the emotional tone and the intentions behind what they are saying, the music of the communication, as well as the lyrics. We ask ourselves, what are they feeling? What are they expressing? And why are they expressing it in that way? We question them and reflect back what feelings are being expressed or sometimes unexpressed. Often a person hides their true feelings behind another. Men tend to cover up their hurt and confusion with anger. Women may suppress their anger and show only tears and sadness. So that question, that simple question, what are you feeling right now, can lead to a lot of important information. In the next slide, we will look at the power of naming emotions. Naming a feeling allows the person to recognize it and accept it better. It also allows each partner to hear and understand what the other person is experiencing and why they react in the way they do. Once we found out and clarified feelings, we can use a more sophisticated approach to questioning that opens up a deeper level of understanding. We will explore circular questions in more detail later. First, let's look at what is called in the research affect labeling, or naming feelings. Many people grow up in families with a deficient vocabulary for describing feelings. Often they've been taught to ignore their own and dismiss other people's emotions as unimportant. Research shows that simply naming and labeling feelings reduces the intensity of negative emotions. Naming positive feelings helps those feelings grow stronger and more vivid. Asking a person to describe in words exactly what they are feeling turns to decrease emotional activation. The more detailed and specific the naming, the better. And it helps to include bodily feelings as well. Sometimes we need to teach a person how to differentiate gradations of feelings, shades of gray rather than black and white. Commonly, people, particularly men, are unable to discriminate shades of feelings. They can't tell the difference between this feeling and that feeling, between irritation and anger, for example. When a person gets angry, we can ask them which words best describes that feeling. displeased, annoyed, irritated, exasperated, frustrated, angry, outraged, infuriated, maddened. I have one client who only uses the word frustrated for all her angry feelings. She comes from a very abusive background in which feelings were not expressed appropriately. Most languages have different words for different levels of feelings, and we need to help our clients be aware that emotions seldom come with simple titles, but are often all mixed up: guilt, sadness, anger, regret, fear, disgust. So now let's look at circular questions. What are they? They can have many forms and have been used in family therapy for over 50 years. In couples counseling, we use them to help a couple develop emotional intelligence, to focus on underlying feelings and motivations in the relationship, and to recognize how each partner hooks the other into the negative relationship dance. Unlike linear questions such as, "How are you feeling?" which have a simple answer, circular questions are more complex. They add at least one more element or factor into the inquiry. For example, instead of asking, "How are you feeling?" you might ask, "How do you know what you are feeling?" Where in your body do you feel that feeling? Circular questions direct the person's attention not only to the feeling in the moment itself, but towards what they can know about that feeling. When we use circular questions with a couple, we might ask, "When your husband gets angry, what do you feel?" Or, "When you see that your wife is crying and you react like that, do you think it helps?" The questions are used to build a more complete and relational understanding of how feelings and intentions connect with each other. Here we have some examples of circular questions. Notice that they always include at least two elements: the feeling and what we can know about the feeling. Circular questions are only limited by your own curiosity and creativity. The intention is to create more self-awareness and self-reflection by getting the person to focus inward on their experience and to be kind of observer of the feelings rather than being caught up and submerged by them. Circular questions about individual feelings might be, "When you feel sad, how do you know you feel sad? What are the best words to describe that sadness? What do you do when you feel sad?" So circular questions for relational feelings are a little more complex. When asked of both partners, it helps them understand how the other person responds to them. You want the couple to see that they have choices about how they respond, even if their feelings are very strong and even overwhelming. Relationship is a dance in which one leads and the other follows, but they can choose what kind of dance they want to do. When you're asking these kind of questions, you may say, "When your spouse is angry, how do you feel in response? What do you do when he's angry? And what do you want him to feel?" So more complex again are circular questions for relational intentions. Confusion or misunderstandings about intentions are at the heart of most arguments. If a partner does not believe that the other person loves them or has a bad attitude towards them, then everything they experience in the relationship will be tainted by that, will be a threat or an attack. The emotional reactions of the other person will be labeled as manipulation or control and evoke a defensive or offensive reaction. Once a partner realizes the other person's reactions are motivated by sadness or hurt or fear of rejection, they have more empathy for those feelings and for the person that feels them. So these are some examples. When you express sadness, what do you want your spouse to do? How do you want your spouse to feel? When your spouse slams the door and leaves, why do you think she does that? What do you think she hopes you will do? So practicing circular questions, listen to the emotions and intentions, reflect what you believe the emotions are, help the partner clarify and name the feeling, ask both partners circular questions about the feeling, and ask both partners circular questions about the intentions behind the feelings. Mutali will help you set up the role plays to practice circular questions, and I leave you in her very capable hands. Thank you.